In about 20 minutes, you're going to be mastering 11 different data types in Python. This video is going to cover int, float, none, range, complex, bool, strings, list, set, tuples, and dictionaries. And by the way, I'm going to go over multiple examples for each of these. All right, let's start coding. All right, so we're going to start with some numeric examples. So example 1 is going to be integers. So example 1, integers, and let's get started. So what we're going to be using throughout this tutorial is type, and you can just put in your data type in here and it'll tell you down below what it is. I'm using Google Colab, by the way. So if I just put type 11 in here, you can see it shows up as an integer. Also, you can perform calculations in this type, right? So you can say like 11 plus 11, 11, 11, it's still an integer. And one other thing I wanted to show you guys, and I'm not going to use it throughout this entire tutorial, but you can do something called isInstance. So instance like that. You want to describe your data type to the right, and then also your example to the left. So if I go over here to 11 and I put int over here, right, it says true. And if I go over here and put 11.5, which is going to be our next example of a float, it's going to say false. So that's a good segue into our second example. So example 2 is going to be floats. So pretty easy, right? A float is essentially an integer with a decimal point at the end. So if you go over here and say type and put 55.5, it's going to say float. And you can also achieve this a lot of other ways. I'm just going to do a quick division one because it's probably the most common. 7 divided by 3, right? And that's going to be a float as well. Now, what's not as common is something called a complex number. And I can't remember what class I first learned about complex numbers in. I think it might have been algebra or pre-calc. But we're going to look at complex numbers. And it's important just to show it for this video, but I really haven't used this on Python side of things. What also I will say too is when I first started learning complex numbers in high school, how I learned them was kind of like this, right? So 6 plus 2i, I being an imaginary number, but Python, you have to use j as a complex number. So if I was going to represent above, I would put 6 plus 2j, and that's how Python does complex numbers. Personally, I remember this from high school, so it's kind of weird to me, but just to show you guys on the complex number side of things. So let's move on to our fourth example, which I do use this a lot. So example 4, and this is Booleans. So you can think of a Boolean as something either true or false. And we'll explore Booleans a lot more in this playlist that I'm developing. But you can go over here and say type true, right? And it says a bool. You can also put type false in here. And those are your two options, right? True or false. The other way you can represent this is you can say type, and you can essentially say like 33 is greater than 11, right? It's going to show bool. Or is 33 less than 11? No, it's going to also show bool. So another way that you could represent that. Example 5, what we're going to do is take a look at a null value. And in Python, a null value is represented through none. So Python null values are none, like this. So all you have to do is type, and you put none, like that, capital N, and you can see it says a none type. There's nothing there. Okay, so next example, we're going to take a look at ranges. So example 6, range. And all you have to do for range, the most common way you're going to see it is like range, and you put something in here like 10. And you'll see this used a lot within for loops. And in fact, my for loop video, which is later in the series, I go over a few different types of parameters that you can throw in range. So you could have range 10 like this, and it starts at 0 and then goes all the way to 9 and stops at 10. You could also specify specific numbers. So you could say like range 5, 10 starts at 5, stops at 10. And you can have a third parameter where you can move forward or backwards a different amount. So like you can put -1, or you could jump 2 each time. By default, it jumps 1, but essentially that's the range data type. Uncover a ton in that for loop video, but let's take a look at example 7, which is going to be strings. So example 7, strings, and let's go over here and say name equals Koufax, named after Sandy Koufax, one of the greatest pitchers of the 50s. And you can see type, you put name in here, right? str, you can say type in here. You can put Mathewson, Christy Mathewson, one of the greatest pitchers of the early 1900s, also shows as a string. Now there's something called a substring. I'm not going to call this another example, but we'll also be covering this a bit later. And you can grab parts of a string. So for example, we already specified name over here. Let's say you wanted to get the first letter. In Python, how this works is everything starts with 0. So if you want to grab the first part of Koufax, you start with 0. And you can see it starts with K. Now, you can also grab specific ranges. I'll show you how to do that. But what I do want to show you is if we go over here and put name 0 in this type, it still shows up as a string. So essentially how we can grab multiple letters in Koufax, right? We can go over here at name. We can go 0 to 3 and KOU. And as I mentioned, right, 0, 1, 0, 1, 2. This is 3, but you stop at 3. You don't actually include that. If you wanted a third, you'd go number 4 there. But yeah, so that's essentially how we can grab that. We could also do the same exact thing. We don't have to specify 0 at the front. We can literally just put :3 like this. And you see KOU. Okay, awesome. Now let's take a look at strings with double quotes and triple quotes. So I just showed you an example of single quotes, and you'll also see in Python double and triple quotes used. So we'll start off with double quotes. You can literally just put type, and you just put Sandy in here, which is the first name of Koufax. That didn't even sound right sentence-wise. That's Sandy Koufax, the pitcher. First name over there. But str. And then also triple. We'll put triple quotes. And then just put type like that. And 1, 2. Another one over here. 3. Sandy Koufax. 1, 2, 3. And your triple quotes are in there. And you can see it populates as a string. Example 8, we're going to take a look at lists. So example 8, lists. You will use lists all the time as you get a little bit better with Python. But we'll go over here at list 1 equals, we'll put some numbers in here, 5, 2, and 3. And we'll do a type, throw list 1 in here. And you can see it shows as a list. What's also pretty nice about lists is you can use multiple data types. So multiple data types. So what I can do is create another list or just put a type in here. We'll just say type and we'll put some numbers. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we'll put a name in here. Walter, first name of pitcher Walter Johnson. And you can see it still shows as a list. And you can also use multiple lists. Multiple lists, right? So you can just do type and inside over here, list 1, 2, 3. Then we'll put a name. We'll put the name in here of Steve Carlton. We'll put Carlton in here. And then we'll put another list. So we'll say baseball. I don't know, we'll put other sports, cricket, golf. Doesn't really matter too much. And do have an error, and that's because ideally I didn't have an outside list. That's my own fault. So you can see I have the bracket for the outside list now, and then these are all different elements in here, right? Our first one is 1, 2, 3 of a list, and then we have Carlton. We have another list of baseball, cricket, golf, and we show list there. which is awesome. Okay. Kind of like with strings, you can access parts of a list. So access parts of a list. And here's how we can do that. So let's go back to list one. I'll just show you what list one looks like. So list one, right? We have 5, 2, and 3. So kind of predict how we grab this first element of this list. Honestly, all you have to do is list one, you put 0 in here, right? And we grab the first part of it. Unlike earlier also, right? If I just go over here and I put :2, you need all that, but I'll put :2, you can see 5 and 2. All right, and lastly, to show you also, you can append to a list. So append a list. Let's go over here and say list1.append, and we'll append 4 in here as well. And now if you take a look at list 1, right, we have 5, 2, 3, and also 4. Again, this is like, in this video, this is just the surface level of lists. I have a full video on the channel that goes over a lot more examples and lists in depth, so make sure to watch that video. Most of the data types in this tutorial, as we get a little bit more advanced, I have full videos on, and if I'm missing any, I'll be making videos in the future. But a lot more information on those side of things. This is just kind of a broad video going over a ton of data types. Okay, we're going to take a look at tuples now. So what we're going to say is example 9, tuples over here, and let's talk about tuples. So first, your data can never change on a tuple. So data never changes. Make sure you know that. So we'll say tuple1 equals and put a bunch of random numbers in here. I don't really care. My code that I prepped for this video is different from these numbers, but doesn't really impact it that much. And you can just go type in here, and you can see tuple, right? And we'll go to example 10, which is sets. Now, sets are interesting because there's no duplicate elements. So no duplicate elements. You can have duplicate elements in lists and tuples, but sets, that does not work. And you can't access elements. You can't access specific elements, right? Above, I showed you a list. You can access stuff. And with tuple, which I didn't show you, but if you go over here to tuple, let's grab 23, Michael Jordan, right? You can grab that. Sets, you cannot. You'll actually get an error with that. So let me show you what happens first if you have a duplicate element. So set dupe, and we're going to say equals and put over here 1, 1, 1, and then also 2. So what do you think is going to happen if I try to print out this set? Make a guess. But regardless, what's going to end up happening is it ignores the duplicates, and you can see the set only has 1 and also 2. Okay, and I didn't show you the type yet, but if we put type in here, we can show set dupe. You can see set. Okay, and there's a lot of different things that we can actually do with sets. Kind of comparing sets side by side is one of the use cases that I see in Python for it. So let's just go through a basic example. We'll say sets 1 equals, and then we'll have sets 2 equals, and I'm just going to populate these really quick. And as I mentioned with lists, I do have a full video covering all of this, so make sure to watch that in this series. The series is going to be linked below. But let's have a few common elements and a few differences between sets 1 and sets 2. First, take a look at unique values. Unique values. All you have to do, print, and then just put sets 1. You put essentially the or sign in Python, which is like this right over here. Then sets 2, right? And this prints all the unique elements, right? 3 isn't unique, but we're putting everything together on that side of things. Then if we want to match values, right, we use an and sign. So we'll say match, and you just change that to and. You can see 3 is the only thing in common, so that's what matches up. If we want to see what does not match between 1 and 2, all we do is subtract. Say doesn't match. You can see 1 and 4, right? So 1 and 4. You can also flip this around, right? And you can see everything that doesn't match in 2 compared to 1. And you're going to get the opposite, 11 and 5, right? And then lastly, you can find distinct unique values. So like distinct unique values. And that's pretty easy. All I have to do is put this caret. And you can see 1, 4, 5, 11. We don't use 3 because 3 is in both of them. You can also add to your set. So you can say like sets 1. Let me just put a note real quick. Add to a set. And just say set1 dot add. Put 5 in here. Then you can also remove from a set. And just say sets1. Oh, just to show you really quick what sets1 looks like when I added that. So prints, you can see 1, 3, 4, 5. And then let's remove 3. So remove 3 this time. And we should just have 1, 4, 5. You can see 1, 4, 5. Awesome. Example 11 now is dictionaries. Another thing you will use a ton. So dictionaries like this. And let's do a cricket example. So cricketer. And inside over here, we'll just have cricketer. We'll put Coley. I think that's how you pronounce it. I do apologize. If not, don't really have cricket that much in the US. But cricketer like this. I do have some of his cards. But you can see type. And you can put cricketer in here. And you can see it shows as dict for dictionary. Okay. And how this works, by the way, so just to explain this. So inside over here, you have key. Then you have your value like this. And there's something called items, which show both key and value. This is just how you access different parts of your dictionary. Pretty common, I'd say, within like different types of coding interviews, and also in general, you'll be using those in, for loops mentioned a few times in this video. But regardless, if you want to grab cricketer.items, right? So items shows both. You can see it says cricketer and Coley. Then if you wanted to grab values, right, and just grab Coley, values like this, okay, shows that over here. And then if you want to grab your key, sorry. You can see over here cricketer. So again, should put keys here instead, because you don't make the same mistake I do. Items shows both. Keys shows the left, right? The cricketer. And then values is the cricketer's name. Now, if you want to access part of this, all you have to do, let's say you wanted to grab Coley directly, which we already technically did with values, but you go over here, cricketer, and then you put over here cricketer, right? Coley. And that's how you can access this directly. And then also, I just want to show you really quick how we can update a dictionary. So update a dictionary, and this is pretty easy. You can just go over here to cricketer.update. And inside, we're going to rewrite this. We're going to say cricketer. And I believe this is another pretty popular cricketer. I have a few of his cards as well. But Donnie or Donnie. And now if we go to cricketer, you can see cricketer shows as MS Donnie. So those are all the data types. Let me just go through this one more time for you guys. Integers, right? Whole number. Float. Imagine a number with a decimal. Complex number. You have this weird formatting. Number plus 2j. Again, Python uses j instead of I for complex numbers. Booleans, true or false. None is like a null value in Python. Ranges you'll see with for loops, but it's essentially a range of numbers. Either you'll see 1, 2, or 3 parameters based around it. Strings, pretty self-explanatory. You can access elements of strings. If you want to grab part of a word, then you can either use single, double, or triple quotes specifically with strings. Lists, right? You can put multiple types of data within a list, including multiple lists. Again, you can access elements. Tuples, you can access elements, but the data on a tuple never changes. Sets, no duplicate elements. If there is a duplicate element, it's ignored, and you can't access elements within sets. Then you have different ways you can compare sets, whether it's unique values, matching, doesn't match, and then distinct, uniques as well. But you can also add to sets. And lastly, I ended off the video with dictionaries. And essentially, right, remember with the dictionary, you have a colon in between. On the left over here, you have your keys. In this case, it's just a key because you have cricketer. And then over here, you have your values to the right. And then items grabs both. You will have to know that for for loops. And you can also update your specific dictionary. Hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel. I have a lot more other beginner-friendly Python videos. I linked a few down below in the description as well as a playlist, but you can also check it out right over here.